Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Andrew, and we are the IB English guys. Today we are continuing our help with paper 2. And today, Mr. Giles, we're getting to the conclusion. It is time to end this paper.
Yes, conclusion is so critical. We've worked hard, we've written a great paper. Now we need to end strong. We have to reach that conclusion. We're not going to shortcut that.
What do you say we just remind our viewers of the quick tips for paper 2? We've announced these in every video. We don't want you to forget these. Here we go. Number 1.
Answer the question in every paragraph.
Number 2. Show understanding with detailed references in every paragraph.
Number 3, use authorial choices. Talk about literary features in relation to the question.
And lastly, this is a compare and contrast essay. Have on your comparative hat, compare and contrast throughout the response, okay? Giles, this is the same question we've been working on. We're almost done with it. Take a crack at it. Read it out.
Here we go. This is the question. Compare and contrast how and to what effect authors use literature as a microcosm of society with reference to 2 works you have studied.
That's right, folks. In earlier videos, we've broken this down in great detail. We talked about the microcosm being a tiny world. We talked about the how and to what effect and how to take that on. And eventually, we arrived at a thesis statement. Go ahead, Giles. Take the thesis away.
Okay. Because of the contrasting genres and degree of complexity of their works, there exist vast differences in the techniques used in The God of Small Things and Death and the Maiden to depict a microcosm of their respective societies. However, Arundhati Roy and Ariel Dorfman create these mini-worlds to sharply criticize oppression and inequalities and also to give a voice to the voiceless victims.
All right, Mr. Giles, that's great. Now, for the sake of this video, Mr. Giles, we'll assume that the student has gone ahead, they've crafted their thesis, which they've just done, they've made their rudimentary outline, they've knocked out that introduction, they've written their body paragraphs, they've got about 10 minutes left in the paper, Mr. Giles, and they're ready to crush that conclusion. What are some things that this writer needs to remember before they write that conclusion?
I think we need to restate our thesis. We're thinking about our main argument. We're probably thinking about, in this case, we're thinking about how the authors are using literature to criticize society and oppression. So we're thinking about the main claim in that thesis.
Okay, Mr. Giles, the second part of the conclusion is very important. And as an examiner, this is something I see mistakes with all the time. Do not summarize your main points of the paper. I repeat, do not summarize the main points of your paper. Instead, Mr. Giles, what do students need to do?
You've got to synthesize them. You've got to put them together and think about how they are synthesized and they form a whole.
Yeah, so folks, think about that main claim, those rich ideas, the body paragraphs 1 and 2. Think about the main claim of body paragraphs 3 and 4. Think about the main claim of body paragraphs 5 and 6. And think about the relationship between these ideas and synthesize, link those ideas together and reach out to some further implication. That is synthesis. We've read the paper. You don't need to rehash everything you've said. Rather, make some bigger connections with those ideas.
The last thing we want to think about is we're thinking about extending beyond these 2 texts to a wider context. We read literature to learn about the human condition. So we want to think about the deeper idea that's being expressed in the question and in the works we wrote about.
Okay, Mr. Giles, let's go ahead and read this sample conclusion, and then we can talk about what we like, okay? Both Arundhati Roy and Ariel Dorfman use their respective works to act as mouthpieces to underrepresented and marginalized groups and thus clearly create microcosms of these somewhat flawed societies. Whether it be the heroes or the villains, all these characters make their respective readers or audiences think about how these stories actually mirror their own lives. This is clearly why we read literature. We read novels and watch plays to understand our world and in the miniature worlds of these characters. Hopefully, we can find some ways to treat each other better and envision a world with less discrimination and unfairness. Wouldn't that be nice? Mr. Giles, let's talk about the conclusion. You're already laughing at your conclusion.
I'm laughing at myself.
Why are you laughing at yourself, Mr. Giles? Take it away.
Just because that wouldn't that be nice. I really felt like writing that. I wanted it to end on that question. I really do feel like human beings can be quite cruel, and I was just thinking about the unfairness and a lot of the inequality. So I did kind of have that comment at the end for my own viewpoint. So what did we do in this conclusion?
Well, Giles, obviously we can see that part highlighted in blue, and that is another way to restate the thesis, okay? You don't want to use the same language. You want to use synonyms, different phrasing, but you do want to tap back into that main claim that you've been linked into throughout the entire response. Talk about your synthesis piece and what you're trying to do there.
Well, I was thinking about, in my paper itself, I talked about victims and oppressors, so I was thinking about antagonists and protagonists, so I was thinking about heroes and villains.
Yeah, so we had heroes, villains, and link them together. That's synthesis.
Yeah, I'm bringing them together, and I'm actually going back to that idea of these mini worlds that are created and how that mirrors our own lives, right?
Yeah.
So,
And then lastly, we see this green highlighted part as well, and that is your attempt to link out or reach out to some further insight, some further implication, talk about why this text is relevant, thinking about the human condition, and even ending with a question where you engage the reader. Talk about that question and engaging the reader, and if you think that's appropriate.
yeah, you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
I want to end with a flourish. I really believe that our last words of our paper are really the place where we can end strong and end with some critical thinking instead of just signing off. But we're really thinking about the deeper ideas. Why did I just spend an hour and 45 minutes writing about this, and why did I study this in my class? And I think there's plenty to think about. So whatever question you get, think about what are the deeper ideas in this work that are trying to be conveyed, and that can be brought into any paper 2 question.
Nicely said. All right, folks, in closing, remember, keep your eye on the clock. A paper without a conclusion is an incomplete paper. Leave yourself enough time so you can restate the main claim, you can synthesize, not summarize the main points, and then, as my friend says, end with a flourish and reach out for some final implication or further conclusion. If you can do that, you will have a complete paper 2, and you'll be more on your pathway to success.
Awesome.
Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you in the next video.
Thanks, guys.